Hello, hello, hello.
Okay.
Today we're going to talk about the number one mistake that you're probably making that's blocking you from shifting into your next level. So one of the most common things that I get is people coming to me asking about these blockages that they believe that they have, curses, hexes, etc., etc. And we need to talk about most of the time what is actually happening. The number one mistake that might be blocking you from shifting is most likely an inability to surrender. So one of the really interesting things about each of our purposes in this life, our individual callings, what we really came here for, what's going to fulfill us, what's going to make us happy, is most people think they have no idea what their purpose is. And the truth of the matter is that you probably, on some level, maybe not the full expression, but on some level, you know what your purpose is. The truth is that you most likely are resisting it because it means going against the grain. Our purposes are not always, oh, it's just going to be so amazing. Sometimes, in fact, most of the times, it's requiring you to step into another level, another version of yourself that maybe you're not comfortable with. That's how it goes. Because the point is for you to be operating at your highest ability, which is always going to be uncomfortable. That they go together. So if you are not experiencing discomfort in your life on a regular basis, you probably need to look at that, because some things should be a little bit uncomfortable. Now, it shouldn't be so, it's not necessarily going to be painful, but whenever I bring clients into my program, I let them know right out the gate, this is probably going to be the hardest thing you've ever done in your entire life, because I'm going to challenge you to be a version of yourself that you've been resisting. And so the very first step is surrender. You can't get the benefits without the surrender part. This is not you surrendering to me. It is you surrendering to yourself. You surrendering and allowing things to be in order to facilitate your growth. Ujjayi. So that surrender piece, we've been taught in society that things have to, like, if you're not hustling, resisting, pushing hard, that you're not really valuable. But the surrender is it's a different type of being. Surrendering is not just doing nothing, but it is letting go of this illusion that you have control. It's letting go of, oh, I have this goal and it needs to happen in this way. Letting go of the how it's going to happen and choosing to shift into the version of yourself that naturally enables that to happen, okay? And choosing to be that person every day. If you don't have what it is that you desire in your life, well, that's because you haven't been that person. That's how it goes. So let me give you all a real life example of this, because this is something, anytime that I'm talking to you all about things, it's coming from a place of my own personal experience, my own personal insights, my own personal struggles. Even if I'm not going into all the details about it, that's where these things are coming from. I don't sit and just watch YouTube videos and read books and then regurgitate stuff, or sit under a teacher and regurgitate what that teacher says. That's not how I operate. I spend a lot of time in contemplation, a lot of time really examining myself, society, people that I work with. So this is really important for every single person to really start to ask yourself these questions, these more empowering questions. Not why is this happening, but can I choose for this to be something that serves me? And what would that look like? What would it look like if I chose for this thing that's occurring to help me to move into a higher level of being, into a better version of myself? A lot of people are very resistant to change because they think that this is who I am. But most of who you think you are has only just been shaped by your experiences and how you perceived them. You have control of how you perceive things. That is something that you actually do have control over. So this came from multiple experiences that I've had in my life where I had to struggle. Struggle's a theme in my life. At this point, I'm kind of just like, oh yeah, this goes with the territory. I'm gonna struggle. Because through that struggle is where the lessons come. A teacher of mine, though, did say, and it has stuck with me, said there's suffering just to be suffering, and then there's suffering for growth. There's suffering to advance yourself, and you get to choose which one. You don't want to get stuck suffering just because you want to be suffering, right? So I'm going to share with you all where all of this insight kind of started. I'm being pushed into another version of myself that feels very expansive. However, I also am very aware of many things that most people are not aware of. So I know like what is also going to come with that. And so I've been very resistant to stepping into that role. Growing up where I did, one of my survival mechanisms was to make myself as non-threatening as possible, as girl next door, as friendly, because there's so many things that come with being perceived as a Black woman, being perceived as a light-skinned Black woman, being perceived as attractive by some people, by being a certain height. Like all of you all are experiencing varying degrees of these things, okay? All of you all are having certain experiences based off of who you are, and how you're choosing to perceive those is also creating and shaping who you are choosing to be in your life. And so I created this very, I call her the girl next door, the girl next door version of myself, because I want to be perceived as stuck up, so I'm going to behave this way. And oh, I don't want to be perceived as seeing myself better than, so I'm going to downplay my achievements. I used to hide my my academics a lot, not because I was ashamed of them. I was actually very proud of myself, but I would hide my intelligence in order to help others feel at ease, because I learned in elementary school that being intelligent as a woman, as a female, because of course at the time I was a kid, as a young girl, being intelligent created some level of threat. And also, you know, it just, not that there's anything wrong with being intelligent, but there are certain experiences that I had as a child who was intelligent, you know, being made fun of, being called a bookworm, blah, 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 right? all of us have had certain experiences that I'm sure you can relate to. And so I developed a way of being to cope with that, right? And downplayed myself and didn't bring that side out. Fast forward to when I become a top sales consultant in direct sales. I was in the top 1% of the company that I was in at the peak, worked my way up in various companies, and I was always one of the top consultants in any company that I've been in a sales and marketing capacity. And I very rarely talked about that. Then when I entered into my spiritual journey, entered into a spiritual community, and started to observe how things operated there as well, I, under the guise of, oh, I'm humbling myself, put myself and in a place where I wasn't fully expressing all that I bring. And so I have had to, in my own spiritual journey, come to understand who I really am, who I really came to be in this life, what my natural gifts and abilities are. And I came as a spiritual master, a spiritual teacher. That is what my role here is. And for so long, I bought into this idea of I have to earn the right to be there. I have to spend my entire life working my way up, right, to get to that level. Does it sound familiar? And on some level, yes, there's certain transformations that I had to experience. There's certain stages that I had to go through. But this is a continuous process, right? Wherever you are right now, you are just at one stage. This is a continuous unfolding of who you already are. It's like an onion that you're peeling back the layers, right? And there's just more layers underneath. But you don't get to fully express and fully develop those things until you surrender to be that version of yourself. Is all of this making sense? So what I want to encourage each of you to do is get real honest with yourself. You have to begin to deconstruct who you think you are. You cannot really have a long-lasting transformation until you let go of who you think that you have to be. You've had experiences in society, in maybe spiritual communities, in your religious communities, etc. You've had experiences where people told you need to be this, you need to do this, you need to dress like this, you need to act like this, you need to smell like this. You know what I mean? Constantly from the time that you are, from the time that even before you came out, certain expectations were being put on you. And then you started to choose to absorb them. Now, I'm not saying you need to throw everything out and start over from a clean slate, because that's literally impossible. But in the deconstruction process, you want to be taking and starting to analyze small behaviors, small thoughts, your perception of things. Start to examine things once a day, not the whole day, because it'll just drive you nuts. But spend a little time, maybe before you go to sleep, examining what happened. And start to just observe where those things are coming from, okay? And ask yourself, is this serving me? Is this serving me? That's one of the most empowering questions that you can ask yourself. Now, when I'm talking about serving you, one of the things that you want to be asking yourself is actually serving you, not making me feel good. Because I will tell you, again, I'm going to reiterate it, it is likely to be uncomfortable. Period. It is likely to be uncomfortable. And it's in that discomfort that there is this level of service to your spirit, this evolution of your being. So much in the spiritual community centers around one of two extremes. And I have experienced both extremes, and I don't opt for either one. On one side, we have the experience of New Age spirituality, where everything is light and love, and everything should feel good. Just do what feels good, and just basically just ignore, right? Just bypass all of the crap, because you don't need to deal with any of that. That's negative. Then the other side of spirituality, which I've also experienced in both the religious aspect as well as more traditional spiritual systems, where there's no growth unless it hurts, and it should be as uncomfortable as possible. And I also don't prescribe to that either. I do see that there is value in both. So both things can be true at the same time. There's multiple truths at the same time. It really depends on what level you are at in your life and what is serving you. So let me give you an example. In my initiation to become a shaman, one of the things that is just a very typical thing is for us to bathe with only cold water, no hot water. And on the surface, that can just seem like making yourself suffer for no reason. But it is not that. It is getting you in just one way, because there's many different ways, but allowing you to start to understand and develop your ability of mind over matter, understanding that you are spirit first and physical second, that your spirit can override the physical, that you can do things that are uncomfortable and be just fine. Your identity, your ego, who you think you are, is attached to this body. And its only job is to keep you safe. That's what it's there for. And if it's doing its job right, that's what you will experience. And that will show up as like fear of the unknown, fear of the different, fear of challenge, fear of failure, fear of success, fear of anything that disrupts the status quo, disrupts the comfort zone. But in this reality, everything is constantly changing. So we have to learn how to develop a healthy ego, how to work with our ego, how to develop our identity side so that it serves our spirit side, because the spirit aspect of you is eternal. That part of you never feels fear. That part of you has no need for it because it is eternal. But you still need to survive, so you also need to have the identity part. That part of you is very important. So denying parts of yourself causes so many problems. Your goal in your personal development, spiritual development, whatever you want to call it, your goal in that is to integrate. It is to fully accept all aspects of yourself and to heal them so that you can be a whole, full being.